You are listening to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, episode 127, Roundtable Discussion on Combat. In today's episode, we have a roundtable discussion on various parts of combat. We have a large table today and discuss combat from new players' perspectives and experienced ones alike. We discuss how different players perceive combat and engage with it. We also discuss challenges with tactical aspects of combat and how to make it more engaging. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode.
Bow, 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 bow. Level Up Your Gaming Podcast.
Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me in person, I have Josh, Lori, Ken, and two new people who you have heard about through the podcast, Ashley and Paul. Ashley, Paul, how you doing today?
Doing all right, man. How are you?
Pretty good.
It's great to hear. I'm glad you guys are finally on the podcast. I know last time you had to leave a little bit early before we started recording this, so I'm excited to have you here. I know that you're both newer players to the podcast, so I wanted to bring in other newer player perspectives because it's something that we don't usually get to be able to kind of bring into the topics. And so I just wanted to know a little bit about you, maybe how you got into gaming. So I'll start with you, Ashley. How did you get into gaming, and what are maybe some of your nerd credentials? Like, what would they be?
Oh, gosh. So I got started in gaming in freshman year of high school. I joined our gaming club. So we did a lot of, I know, Lori, don't make that face. We did a lot of like board games to start, like Guillotine and Zombies. And then,
Good games,
I know, yeah,
games.
Zombies is my favorite. And then from there, we dabbled into Dungeons and Dragons, and that's where I got started.
Excellent, excellent. And Paul, I think I know how you got started, but how did you get started into gaming?
That'd be my wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's be simple here.
What do you enjoy about gaming? I know that this probably wasn't something that you were I mean, you played video games, but what about tabletop gaming in general do you enjoy?
I just kill shit. That's all I do. I don't care about the storyline. Like, it's great. It's amazing. Josh does a fantastic job at our game here. But, yeah, I just kill things.
Excellent. I mean, listen, everybody's got their own motivations for playing in the game. We're going to dive deeper into that. I'm going to dissect you more. Ashley, how about you? What do you enjoy about the gaming aspect?
I like being able to get together and be creative with all of my friends. Josh does a really great job of building a world that we all forget how wide the world is every time we play.
She's not wrong.
Right.
And I think Ken's the only one that's got a journal that's somewhat comprehensive going.
Christ, I've got pages of notes. It's ridiculous.
And I feel like half of our gaming evening is Josh trying to regale us again of what we already did. But I enjoy that part of it.
Because I'm the only one that takes notes.
And the rest of us have memory issues, so it's fine.
But it is tough because you guys game kind of at odd times. Like
Sporadically.
sporadic.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at like 8 o'clock at night when it's getting ready to bedtime. Like, I want to go to bed at like 9.
Get ready to go to bed to go to work for the first time in a fucking week. Jesus Christ.
But anyways, that I think that's awesome that you guys have gotten into the gaming. I know that I started playing Hero Quest with you, and then you guys moved into the D&D games here at the table. So I'm glad to be able to kind of get you into the podcast and get your perspectives with everything.
We're happy to be
Wait,
here.
we played Hero Quest?
Yeah, you don't remember this?
Guns McFreedom.
That's where Guns McFreedom came from.
Shit, dude, I can't remember nothing.
Oh my god.
That was the one that I fucking story told.
This is why I have to recap every fucking week.
Have you been paying attention to any of the games?
Not since the beginning.
Paul,
No, he just
Paul?
kills shit.
kill things. That's all I do.
where are you
Absolutely.
right now?
Also, if you're wondering why some people might sound far away,
There
We
you
are,
go. That's the correct answer.
we are recording with 4 mics, 6 people, so we're trying to juggle some mics around here. It'll be okay. Bear with us,
interesting.
please. So anyways, I wanted to get us into a topic that I think both everybody here at the table can maybe weigh in and give their expertise on, which is kind of spicing up combat. Everybody knows combat in D&D or any role-playing game is long, arduous, and tends to be very boring. Okay, there's exciting parts to it because there's the gambling aspect of rolling dice, and when you hit that crit, it's like, hot damn, I did it. But if you're
Hell yes.
So, but there's more to combat, and I think that if you listen to like live plays, like Critical Role, other things of that nature, you're going to hear people describing their combat in a more kind of vibrant way to kind of spice it up and speed up combat. Because one of the things with combat is slow. Okay, so I just kind of want to get your thoughts on it. I'm going to start over with Lori here. What are your thoughts as a newer player on combat?
On spicing up combat or combat?
Combat in general.
I 100% agree that it can be long. And if you're not in the action phase of combat where there's actually things taking place, that's where the memory issues can happen because you get bored.
Are you when you have combats? I'm not really familiar with the combats that you have in the game. Are they more of big combats, like you're up against large swaths of enemies? How does it kind of tend to go?
I think for the most part, yes, there are large swaths of enemies that you then wait a particularly long time to get to your play, right? So it really has to be engaging in order to pay attention and make it to what you're going to do.
Okay. Yeah, no, I hear that. I can see some major large combats that I've had in my past that took 10 minutes to get around a turn order. Okay.
Right.
And
Right.
the bigger your table is, the bigger this problem is. And so, Josh, you're the GM of the table.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the combats, and how do you keep them at pace and keep people engaged in the combat?
Well, there's two types of combats I like to run. There's a lot of small enemies, because then you can engage all the different players separately, and each person can get their own thing against their own enemy. You can have a lot of different wins. Everybody wins separately because there's a lot of small things to win against. But that takes forever because then you are engaging with a lot of enemies. Then you also have the large single top enemy, or like with an environment or whatever. And while that combat can go faster, there's a lot less wins that each person can have. So you get a lot less of that.
Oh, and by the way, this is an open format. If you do have something you want to chime in with, please jump in.
I just wanted to comment that Josh has a podcast voice.
Well, thank you.
He practices.
I do. I sit at
He
home
absolutely does.
all day long just listening to myself talk.
But no,
That's
I'm sorry.
not wrong.
I interrupted you in the middle of your
No, I mean,
Diatribe.
the two things that I try and do to keep combat interesting is look at the enemies that you're facing, because, yeah, combat can take a long time to get around to any individual's turn. You can...
Ken is much like a cat. So
I got yelled at about that earlier.
That seriously
yelled at
fucking
him.
showed up. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
it did.
anyways, continue.
What the hell was I saying?
You're talking about combat has two problems. Which
two parts.
long
Maybe this
turns.
is why we have memory issues too.
Yeah. So the two things, yeah. Big enemies, because you can have big bombastic fights, but you don't have a lot of little individual wins. Or you can have a lot of small enemies where each person can have their own little win, but it takes a lot longer. I try and get flavor text into the combat, for big crits.
Do you encourage everybody at the table? I mean, I'll ask Paul. When you're doing your combat actions, Paul, what are you typically saying? Is it just I attack Kobold X, or is it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's pretty much it.
Kobold X.
Yeah, I just kind of say, I want to attack this guy, and then I roll my dice. That's pretty much all I do.
Okay.
Paul be
So,
like,
so you're
"What's near me?"
very much of the reward of the dice roll and the damage that comes out of it.
Yeah, I'm pretty much a tank, so I just try to go and just kill everything. That's
You
just
and
me,
both,
though.
homie.
That makes sense. So Do you ever, when like you hit the crit, Josh says, "Man, major hit, blah blah blah," and he says, "Tell me how it happens." Do you ever talk? Do you ever describe it? Do you ever be like, "I decapitate the shit out of that kobold"?
No, I don't talk. I just say, "Cool, I critted him. That's cool."
I tried to encourage this early on. Like, tell me how you did. Like, I just hit him. So, what I started doing on some of the big hits, the crits, is I would sort of narrate what happened. I don't want to take away that that aspect from the player, but I do want to just like encourage that. And if I'm the one putting out the, hey, this is how it happened, tell me how you'd like it. But like, if you're not going to give me something, I will still sort of narrate a little bit more flavor to this. I'm happy to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a very similar thing that me and my buddy Artie used to do in his 7th Sea game, where he would kind of prompt you to say, so how would you like to do this? And that was the storyteller's kind of cue to the player to say, you've landed the finishing blow. You've done the point of damage where it kills the boss. You've got the opportunity to narrate this epic scene, to be able to say, I fucking uppercut his ass through the fucking chin. I knock his jaw off into the chandelier. It knocks off 3 of the bulbs and fucking kills half the lighting in the goddamn dining room.
Explain your coup de grace.
Exactly. You explain your coup de grace.
You've
However,
entered the cutscene.
not everyone wants to participate on that level, and that's fine. It comes to the storyteller's point at that point to say, okay, how would you like to do this?
You've got thoughts.
I crit the hell out of him. Okay, you crit the hell out of him, and this is what happens. So it's kind of like a give and take at that point. It's like if the player is not, I don't want to say not engaged enough, but if that is not their forte, that if that is not what they're looking for out of the story, then they are not beholden to that level. But
No, because the rules of
can
combat
still fill in that level of storytelling dynamic.
The rules of combat are straightforward, which is
Right.
you just say
I
you
roll
attack,
dice,
I roll
you
dice,
take
go.
damage.
But
I roll dice, I use this ability. I roll more dice, you take damage, you take more damage. Also, P.S. fuck you.
I
Anyways.
gotta be 100% honest with you, man. If you come to our house and watch me play games, I have my PlayStation 5 on my laptop
Right.
and like something else on in the background while I'm playing this
so
game.
you are an unengaged player.
Right.
I just wait for my turn, and then he says, "Do this." Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. And, I'm going to harken back to something we talked about at the last meeting that we had. When you're a newer player and not used to the format, you're not going to be the one that's like, I'm going to punch this dude in the
Very
face
true.
and stab him
Very
in
true.
the testicles. You're not going to do that because that's not natural to you.
Stab him in the testicles.
No, always stab him in the testicles.
Listen, I was being
Ashley, you
dramatic
look
for
like you
effect.
want to chime in here. How would you?
How
do
do
it?
you feel about stabbing people in the testicles?
No.
not the point.
That's not the question. The question is
I apologize to the listeners. I was just trying to be dramatic.
I don't.
how is your engagement? I don't care about stabbing people in the scrotum. That's flavorful text. Okay.
Testicles, not scrotum. Different parts of the body, Aaron.
I sorry. Aside, before I go into this, I was listening to a friend of the podcast, the Dungeon Masters Dojo,
Ashley.
and they're doing live plays right now.
How do
And
you
one of their
feel?
live play descriptions is that the guy was playing this character, and they had finished off a bad guy, and he's like, I dismantle his scrotum as part of the live play. And I was like, and they went into this whole thing about it, and I was just like, well, that's just flavor text. Like, that is what it is. Anyway, sorry, Ashley, I just interrupted you.
No, I kind of like the mix of both, like being able to kind of choose how something happens. Like if I'm super engaged and super excited about something and like I envisioned what happened to this character. You look like you're dying over there. Are you good, homie?
I don't have a mute button.
Now you do.
Now you do.
But I also appreciate when Josh just kind of like takes over and, you know, like if I have no clue what I just did and how that's supposed to affect the story, because I don't always know what's going on because I can't see into the future. And there's a lot of side stories in our story right now, which is great because it gives everybody's character their own background. And I love that part. But if I'm doing something and it affects somebody else's backstory that I already forgot about because it's not me, then I'm like, what? Well, what did my action do today, Josh? Please enlighten us. And then he just kind of does. And it's really helpful because it's like a choose your own adventure, but with less thinking at the, you know, start of a long work week. It's nice to not have to think so hard.
Conventional
all of the
choose
time.
your own adventure.
It has a
Turn to
safety
page
net.
43 and you
Right.
read page 43 and Josh is like, well, here's what you find.
Right. And I appreciate the fact that he always is creating all of these great, very in-depth stories.
Very much so.
I love all the praise that I'm getting. This is just fantastic.
Yeah, you're really helping his ego right now.
I'm
I don't know if his head's gonna be able to fit.
After 25 years, that's
he's-
why I'm here.
He's
Just to
turning
fucking
into the
inflate
Kool-Aid man
Josh's
right
ego.
now.
So for you though, in combat specifically, are you narrating your actions beyond I attack Cobalt Z? Because we're fighting
I feel like-
A through Z.
I feel like sometimes I am. This is my first time ever playing a spellcaster, ever. I'm usually a rogue or a ranger, so it's very different as far as how my actions go throughout.
Are you enjoying the tactical aspect of it? Because I know that like spellcasters, like Fireball, that's a major radius spell, and are you nuking your friends as well?
When in doubt, fireball it out. Just that's all we do.
Yes.
When in doubt, fireball it out.
Absolutely.
I plead the fifth.
Honestly,
As
we're all very
Ashley's
supportive.
legal representative in this, I would like to say that I am not helping in this situation. I have literally bought her a t-shirt that says, fuck it, dude, I don't care how big the room is. I said I cast Fireball.
It is a great T-shirt.
I'm very proud of it. And she has worn it on a number of occasions, and my heart melts every time I fucking see it.
I think there's
That said, sorry, go ahead.
with spellcasters in particular. I know that there's we've talked about, you know, the you attack somebody and you decimate their scrotum. But with spellcasters, some of that flavor text is, you know, it's a spell. What do you do with the spell? And I've seen, like, what is it, Dimension 20, Critical Role. Some of these people, they put a lot of effort into how they're casting spells. And I really appreciated some of the spellcasting that was done in Critical Role's second season.
Right.
When they talk, you know, they describe how they're actually casting the spell and putting some effort into it, because therein you can put in some more of that flavor text, like the actual how your character's interacting with it. And I've seen the same sort of thing.
What's going on?
No, it's a very poignant
I
point.
completely lost my
And I
train of
think,
thought.
well, no, but if I can pick up where you left off there, I think I know exactly what you're talking about, where the crew of Critical Role is adept at describing the verbal, the semantic, the material components. I like dust this amount of ash over this blue sacred flame that I am fucking doing. And
Yeah.
I say the sacred words of blah blah blah, and they describe the hand gestures that they're doing to cast this spell, and it adds so much more flavor to the scene.
Yeah, but it
And
doesn't.
It's
There's spicing up the flavor of combat, but then there's also spicing up combat.
Right.
Like we talk about, you know, the actual actions and sort of describing it and how do you do this, and you know, I you know, run my hands through the ash and throw it in the air to cast the fireball or whatever the hell it is. But there's the other half of spicing a combat is actually making the combat more engaging.
Yes. So to your point there, just describing how you incant the spell is one half of it, or how the spell materializes. This ball of fire begins to swirl in the sky. That adds cinematic to the event, but the event itself may not be very engaging because the event may be slow as piss. Like, it just may be just really, really bad. Like, you've got 30 kobolds and you got 5 players, and now your turn order is taking forever.
Well,
Most def.
one of the things that I've run into and repeatedly run into, especially with running D&D 5e, is you start up a combat, enemies run to place, characters run to stand next to them, and then nobody moves for the next 2 hours.
What are you doing? I'm readying a dodge action.
Well, like,
What are you doing?
Does
I'm also
this sound
readying a dodge
familiar,
action.
Ashley?
Yes. And
Oh, not for me. I just
All
go
of the
for it.
kobolds are readying dodge actions.
I also think
The turn
it's
concludes. Everyone dodges.
a little bit slow because there are so many enemies, and it would be nice to take care of a few and then have more spawn so that it's a shorter turn.
That is a handy trick. You can always add more enemies. It's
Right.
hard to subtract them once they're there.
And I think that would really help with the spellcasters because it gets a little boring not being able to get close to anything because you'll die.
Ash?
I guess that's how Ken and I have it pretty easy. Like
As the tanks.
Like we just go straight
go
forward
in.
and don't care.
You're engaged.
Balls
you're
first.
locking down players because there's a tactical aspect to D&D where once you're within range, they can't disengage without an
Exactly.
opportunity attack.
Oh, exactly.
Exactly.
And especially with me, like if I rage, then and Ken's next
Yeah,
to me, he
we've
gets,
got the point to
Oh,
where
yeah.
we've got this synergy where Paul and I will get in combat, and Paul rages. I get opportunity attack because he's raging, and
you just get advantage.
it just there's advantage over advantage over advantage.
Look at the
and
noob
it
knowing the
just-
terms.
Damn, I feel special.
It becomes.
Listen, he knows his combat. He knows what he's
It
good. He knows
becomes
where his
this
bread's buttered.
dance.
Okay?
And I'm really sorry. No,
Everything else
I
can
need to
get
say
fucked.
this. I need to say this because I am actually really sorry that Paul and I have found a groove as the tanks that we kind of take over combat and everybody else is kind of ancillary. And I really don't mean that to.
I shoot shit and I kill shit.
Yes, and you do it very, very well, and I'm proud of you.
And that's where I think like we work as a group,
Right.
per se. Like for us in combat, like Ken and I just go straight for everything.
Right.
And then you guys kind of hang back and just shoot shit at a distance.
Yeah.
And then Lisa just heals us when
Are you guys
We
working
take-
tactically as a group?
Not
we
a-
try
I don't feel
to.
like we are working as tactically
as possible.
as we could.
Not as
And I don't
possible.
think we are utilizing our teammates.
However, I do
we
feel
should.
that we are acting tactically,
Ooh, getting
but
spicy.
Ash is starting to shoot shots
I
over
will
here.
say,
The truth comes
I
out.
will say
Fireball's fired.
that fireballs fired. Yes, absolutely. But I will say we are acting tactically. However, we are not acting tactically intentionally.
Right. And I would
That
agree
is a
with
very
that.
important distinction.
I would
We're
definitely
all
agree.
performing our roles, but we're not performing our roles in coordination with each other intentionally.
Not in so much of a sense that it's well thought out.
Right.
But I do think
Exactly.
there's a consideration
Yes.
to it. Because I don't think if there was that
It's not
slight
premeditated.
consideration, we would do so well.
Right.
But we
but
do.
we do work very well together, and that works to our advantage, but it is not intentional.
you don't take full advantage of all of the people. And one of the people that's not here right now is the person that's not really getting the full advantage of their character.
I want to
Right.
bring that up because I feel like our cleric is very underutilized. She does not feel like she's included in the game. She does not feel like she's being included in combat. Yes, you threw in this wonderful side story where we basically got jumped in the bottom of a church. Like, it was terrible.
It was epic.
And then, so, but I don't feel like she feels like she's a part of combat.
No.
And that she doesn't get
So
to do anything.
she feels like she's lacking within combat.
Because I feel like she's lacking.
Lisa, if you're listening, we
Speculation.
love you. We appreciate you.
Yes.
We could not survive without you.
We could not survive without her.
Well,
Please
that is the
leave
problem,
us.
though. You guys forget this. That's the problem. You've got two tanks that run headfirst into combat, and you've got
Unabashedly.
you've got a warrior, a fighter who's got enough AC that it takes a serious hit to get through, and a barbarian that just soaks hits after hits after hits. But your DPS are glass cannons.
Yeah.
So a lot of fights go, and you don't take out the fighters, you take out the DPS, or you take out the cleric. So she's in the back just burning through healing spells or just trying to keep people up.
Yeah.
And she's not really getting the opportunity to go forward and like use any of those wonderful cleric DPS spells or any of the buffs and stuff like
Right.
that. And I try and get opportunity for that, but some of the way that the combat runs is, you have this sort of predetermined plan. It's the two tanky fighters run into combat and full on engage, and then everybody else holds back as far as possible in a single spot.
Keep talking.
And just like lobs whatever death they can from afar. And it makes a target in the back. It makes a target in the back that is very juicy and something that all the enemies want to just take a big bite out of. And two guys in the front that they're going to have to throw the heaviest things they can at. Otherwise, they're just going to get, ruined.
Okay, so I guess one of the questions that I have, and I'll ask you, Ashley, because you brought up the issue with Lisa. So she's just spending her entire combat healing instead of attacking. And I've played the cleric in a D&D party. It's not an MMORPG.
It's fucking thankless.
Okay, it's not an MMORPG, so you can never keep up with the damage that's being done to your tanks.
You're
You're always behind the 8 ball, and you're wasting your healing actions for that. Do you feel like that's probably what's going on?
Yeah, I feel like every time we call on her, she's like, oh, yep, I guess I'm healing. I'm all out of spells, guys.
Yeah.
You're on your own.
That's the big thing is when Lisa runs out of spell slots.
We fucked.
Well,
That's
it's
when our
not
combat
just that
falls
we're
apart.
fucked, it's that none of us have been paying attention to when she needs aid, to when she needs rest to be able to, kind of center herself.
What can we do for our cleric instead of what can our cleric do for us?
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's
Well, I'm not going to place the
and no, we're all guilty of it.
We are.
I'm not going to place the blame on
It was
one
100%.
specific person here.
No, we're all guilty.
But hold on a second here. When I was
It's
making
90%
the character,
you and me, 45-45.
when I was
It's
making
10%
this character,
the rest of them. But it's
I kid you
45-45
not.
you and me.
when I was making this character, I kid you not, he said, "You run it shit, you kill things."
He's a new player. He's playing his character.
That's
to a
all it
T.
was.
Yeah.
I go for it.
Yeah.
He's
So
a first-person
honestly-
shooter game
Yeah,
player.
all I do is play Call of
Yeah.
Duty. So this is interesting to me and
he's-
new to me. And
He's FPS
yeah.
by himself. No,
So
that's fine.
how will we talk about? She's got to heal. That's part of her MO as being a cleric. But also, you want to be able to engage her as well. So how do you make the combat more engaging for her? How do you feel like Josh could maybe do that, in your opinion?
This is why I'm not the GM.
To be fair, he really
Josh.
does do a good job at including her. Like Ashley was talking about, adding an extra storyline.
Right.
Combat, I don't know, but some of the combat is directly centered around her, from what I remember.
So is the combat? I mean, because the combat's always a major part of any game that you play. I mean, my philosophy is you have to have one combat every 2 sessions. Otherwise, you're probably boring your players to some extent. So, and you're trying to keep your players engaged. That's at least my philosophy in a game. It's quick combat. It doesn't have to be long 30 Cobalt session that we're talking here. Okay.
So really quick, and I know Josh wants to say something on this, but if I may, I know that really depends on your player base circumstantially. I've got a lot of games in the past where they're just like, yeah, we really prefer the puzzle base rather than the combat base.
Again,
So
it's based upon your player base.
And that's my entire point. That's the entire point of that. So that said, Josh is giving me the look like I should stop talking at this point. So Go nuts. Dude.
No, I was looking at my phone. No. So I've tried to include everybody into a combat. I've tried to, there's some give and take when you create a combat encounter designed around engaging a specific player, because some of the combat you will focus on, hey, how can I make this interesting for this player? How can I make it interesting and bring this person in? And if you're not thinking about it holistically, because you have a whole party you're going after, how can I get these people away and then focus on making this person useful? Only goes so far as to the extent that person needs to actually engage and understand that this is the time for them to step up. And that's not always something that's going to be readily apparent. One of the things that Lisa has in her arsenal, and it's been a while since she's played, but even when it was in, because she spends so much time just doing onesie twosie heals, she is a grave cleric. And they have the wonderful ability to actually double the damage on the next hit, to increase all sorts of damage for the party, to focus and see like Eyes of the Grave and stuff like that, to notice the undead or notice anything that's out of the ordinary. And I've thrown those things into the game, but because she's spent so much time not utilizing the extent of her abilities, she doesn't. And I don't want to be like, stand in, like, use this ability now.
But the action economy on a cleric sucks.
It does.
Okay? Like, that's the problem with clerics in D&D, is the action economy sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The action economy for wizards sucks too, but your main action economy is a big-ass attack. Okay?
But at the same time, it feels like Lisa has not been given the opportunity to completely explore the depth of the specific build for the class that she has.
What I again, this kind of comes more into what drew her into the build.
Yeah,
like, what did she
exactly.
like about it?
It's a combination of the opportunity that she has within the class, and the class specific build that she has committed to. We see this kind of, well, give me 2 seconds to finish up this point. You actually see this a lot in World of Warcraft. Players will not know how to correctly utilize the build that they have done for a specific class. In Rogue, for example, you've got 3 classes. You've got Assassination, you've got...
we don't need to go into all the details.
No,
about
but like that's my entire point, is that you've got specific builds for a specific class. And it's more than 3, like WoW has given you.
There's more flavors to the class, and you need to know how to build them.
But at the same time, as a relatively new player, she hasn't been given the opportunity to explore everything for that build, while simultaneously being beholden to all the responsibility that that class has within a small group dynamic.
Before you jump in, Josh, I want to get Ashley's thoughts.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, how dare you say just 2 seconds and then go into WoW? There's no way WoW takes only 2 seconds.
Hey. Regardless.
Who's using it as a launching point? Ashley, please.
I was just going to point out that Lisa is also on the newer side. So while she may not have necessarily, and I feel like she did way more research creating her character than the rest of us, because, well, okay, maybe except for maybe Ken, because you have pages, but
no.
Besides the point.
Those pages were after the fact. She did a lot more preemptive.
So I feel like, and there was a whole encounter that Josh created for us during Halloween last year, where we were in a graveyard for 2 sessions because we couldn't figure out why these zombie creatures were trying to pull us into these crypts, and we kept fighting it. So, and none of us thought to be like, hey, man, somebody could probably talk to the dead. That could have been helpful.
Yep.
Was that one of Lisa's powers?
Yep.
Be able to talk to the dead.
But we didn't know. None of the rest of us know what her character
Exactly.
could
Did she
do.
just
I-
forget
That becomes
that
a
aspect of her
communication
character?
issue. Well, no, it's not just her. That becomes a communication aspect with all of us.
We're not utilizing.
But that's not their.
No.
That's not everybody else's character.
But it's also an issue with being a newer player and not knowing how to utilize your full skill set, or even communicate that to your fellow players.
So to my question there, did she know that she had that ability?
Well, there's no like
Clearly not.
I had broken my own rule and had texted her during the thing, and she did not respond, saying, "Hey, you should try and use this." It was not a combat encounter. It was played as a combat encounter because it looked like a combat encounter, and it was playing out as a combat. It was a puzzle encounter, and I was trying to make a puzzle encounter seem dangerous.
It ended up being phenomenal in the end, and she got to teleport from one part of that was the same one. I'm not going crazy. Okay, so I do have memory sometimes, and she got to teleport from one side to the other, and I thought that was the coolest
That was really
thing
cool.
in the whole wide world.
I enjoyed the shit out of that.
So
Hey, man.
I would like more of those encounters as a wizard that can only lob fireball like 3 times.
I'm sorry, it's a
Only
thankless job
fireball.
too.
I know,
I'm not
it's
good at
fine.
puzzles, man. So when you try to make this stuff happen, it just doesn't work out for me because I'm more of like a fighter and I just want to kill things, and puzzles just don't work out. I'm not the brightest bulb in the bulb box, and I will be the first to admit that. Just doesn't work out that way.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, you can have encounters that get a little gimmicky. I actually just talked about gimmicks in games in my last episode.
Yes, you did.
And that was a gimmick for an encounter that seemed like it had no solution besides talking to the dead. So
Well, it was a part of a solution. And see, that's one of the things that when you talk about spicing up encounters, spicing up combat, that was one of the things I tried, last year was, you've got your Rock'em Sock'em
yeah, I might change this episode title to how to engage your players
in combat. Yeah, it could
That
be.
or Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
But I was also throwing in combat encounters that were, solved by things not involved in just punchy, stabby, because I think a big part of that also was, you have some people that are very good at physical combat. Some people are good at range combat, magic, and then you've got other, and you need to have some sort of engagement with all of your players and keep them involved in these sort of events. And so giving them the options, giving them time to shine is useful to make sure those players keep coming back. They enjoy playing the game.
Yeah, spotlight moments in combat are very important. They make players feel engaged in the combat. And so if your spotlight moments for Ashley, unfortunately being the wizard, is only lob a fireball, okay, I don't know if that's enough to keep bringing you back to combat.
Well, I mean, you could also set up something where, like a wall of force, or doing a big reveal, like, doing a magic thing that shows, oh, I am the intelligence character. I have solved this machine while the rest of you guys are fighting off, hordes of enemies. No, we haven't gotten to that
That
yet.
face is like, what the hell are
We
you
haven't gotten to
talking
that yet. I'm revealing things. Just cut this out. Cut this out.
It's going to be a combination of I have solved this very complex puzzle. P.S. I cast Fireball.
I mean, I did have my familiar steal a necklace
You did.
off of one of the characters,
Yep.
one of the bad guys, and then it immediately got murdered shortly after. But it was one of those moments where I was like, wow, I did something cool that nobody thought I was going to do. And then the familiar died like 10 seconds
For
later. But, like,
you
it was
But you
great.
still
specifically being kind of the
succeeded in
glass
the action.
cannons, do you feel like you and Lori, do you feel like you have any other actions that can kind of stand out in combat? That was a good example of one. But have you ever felt like there's been other things that you can do that stand out in combat? Like
I just shoot things.
You just shoot things. So you are the long range Paul. I got it.
Yeah. I mean, Paul and I definitely agree on that aspect of it, but I feel like that is where my character shines.
Well, you are a ranger, right?
Yes.
You are
Yeah,
really
so
good
she's
at what
got
you do.
the ability to mark a target and then track it, even if it disappears, sort of follow things through. She's got a couple of spells that are...
Has that come to fruition? Have you had her track it down?
I have put that into and then they just roll
But I'm
on
a new
percept.
player,
Yeah.
and sometimes I don't see things that are necessarily right in front of my face.
However, he does give you the opportunity to take advantage of the abilities that you have in the heat of the moment, saying that, okay, you've got this guy dead to rights. This gives you the opportunity to take X, Y, and Z attack to be able to capitalize on the damage of the other abilities that you have.
But I think his being clear about what actions I can take and my understanding of the actions I can take are not always in line.
So the first part of this podcast was how great I am, and the second part is how sucky I am.
Listen, the tables turn on you pretty quick.
Way to make it all about you.
No, this is not a comment on his ability to GM. This is a comment on how people learn about their characters and how the game plays.
Exactly.
It's not him. Unfortunately, we are talking about the game that we play with him, so that's why we're
You are literally
talking about
being
him.
able to talk about the critiques of your
Right.
GM in front of your GM, which is
and
good. I mean, it's
you
a good
can
thing.
But
give him the praise and the condemnation that he is very justly deserving of.
But this is not to say that he is bad. However, there are always
Far from
areas
it.
in which everybody can improve on whatever they're doing.
But I'm lucky enough to work in a place that I can talk to people, and
Right.
one of my fellow coworkers is very, very deep into the D&D spectrum here, and it is crazy when you bring stuff up to him. He can just go on a rant for an hour and not even take a break.
He's a very experienced player.
Right.
Oh yeah, and
If
I
nothing
get
else,
So
very
when you
familiar.
tell him stories about what you do in the game, he goes into hey, what happened there? What happened there?
Well,
right?
yeah, he's like, you can do this, and then you can change your character to do this. And I'm like, dude, you just lost me at 2 seconds in. Like, I'm just here to kill things. That's all I do.
Listen, I mean, if that brings you the joy, it brings you then.
I mean, I enjoy, thinking about that. I'm like, I wonder if I can actually do that just to piss off Josh. And then I ask
Listen,
him,
there is motivation to trying to trip up your GM.
oh,
You should try to do it.
There
try to piss him off
absolutely
as
is.
much as I can. And there's sometimes where I think I may have gotten him pissed off once or twice.
Utilizing your character's potential, everything your character has to its full potential, is great. And being able to show that you can you have more, if you learn more things about your character that you can do, you should try and experiment with them in combat.
Very much.
Yeah,
so.
I
don't know.
guess.
Ashley, you look like you've been wanting to say something.
I
There
feel
you
like
go.
I had something and then it disappeared. So I'll raise my hand again when I come back to it.
No, don't raise your hand. Just say, everybody shut up, and then you just talk.
Cast a spell.
But
Fireball.
I cast silence.
so one of the other
Looks like he saved. I don't know.
They're not going to visit.
one of
Ashley
the other
interjects and casts Fireball.
one of the other interesting things with playing ranged characters versus the right in your face characters is the positioning in combat. Does Josh force monsters upon you to force positioning with your characters?
I do feel like he forces some bad guys on us, and then I feel like we panic and then we get trapped and we stay in the same spot either way. So sometimes I've tried to follow our tanks, not too closely, but within 30 yards. And is it yards or feet?
Feet.
Oh,
Squares.
shit. Okay.
I
well,
mean, it's fine.
It works all
I
the
went
same way.
metric.
5 feet per square.
Never in my
It's
life.
fine.
It's not meters.
6 squares in
Oh,
a minute.
fuck. See?
Yards is still the English system.
How many hands away
If
is
they
that
haven't
enemy?
told you yet, my hair is blonde.
Blondes?
Don't do that.
No, don't do
Currently.
that.
It's fine.
That's not fair to you.
You're the highest intelligent character at the table.
Oh, that was mean.
Wow. That's
Low blow.
She's actually very intelligent.
that's
Okay.
saying a lot, apparently, about this table.
So, but anyways, what I was asking is, so with positioning, you say that you panic. Do you ever feel like your turns get wasted with having to reposition yourself in combat itself?
Sometimes, yes. I feel like I'll spend a turn trying to get closer, and then I'll like attack, and then everything moves way too far away, and then I can't get there. By the time I get there, combat's over, or all of the cool stuff is over, or I can't stop the big bad guy from doing one of his spells, and then there's the giant like earthquake on the dinosaur island, and then we're fucked.
How do you feel like you would be able to make the combat more engaging for you? I just stumped you.
I would honestly say like one thing that we can do to help them is, I guess Ken and I's range, like our movement speed is so high for being tanks. Like I don't know how my movement is 45 feet.
We are extremely aggressive tanks.
Oh, it's stupid.
And I think
Like,
you
we
guys
run
could
in.
maybe slow it down for us.
I think that's
and wait for the rest of your party.
Well, here's the thing, though. The point of the tank is to grab aggro and hold aggro.
and that's part of
The
my
entire point is for us to hold the attention of the enemies so it doesn't get reflected back to you.
But I also feel like that's a curse too, because I mean,
Absolutely.
even with me, I have to rage. When I do rage, I have to I have to fight things
Right.
in order to keep rage, and that also helps Ashley if she gets close enough, or it also helps Ken
Yep.
if he gets close enough. But I do feel as though sometimes we do push it to that limit, and we kind of leave them behind, which sucks because then Ken and I inadvertently have to wait for them to catch up, which sucks.
We kind of get into a rhythm where it's basically just the Guns and John show, for lack of a better term.
I would like to come back to Ashley had said something about the encounter on the dinosaur island.
Yeah.
And I think that one was a really good example of how to actually engage all of the players. I used a very large map, and I had a ritual going on at the far end, and a number of bridges and areas that they had to traverse in order to get across. And in each one of the areas, before you got to the bridge, there was a small group of fairly easy to defeat monsters. Yanti. And fighting through these, you'd have the quick monsters that would run up and physically engage, and other monsters that would stay back and do long-range attacks. So it gave opportunity for the tanks to engage. It gave opportunity for the DPS to do ranged attacks. And there were some undead and some other things involved in there also that I was trying to keep the healer involved in as well. So that you had a ongoing... Now, this was also timed because that ritual needed to be defeated within a certain amount of time, and they were able to do that. So you had to engage, fight, move, find a new fight, engage, move, and get to the end. And I think that encounter took, 3 weeks to get through?
Yeah.
But I think everybody had a part of it where they sort of stood out and really had a shining moment. And everybody got engaged in that. And I don't think anybody had any spells or hit points left by the end of the damn thing. So it was like, skin of the teeth at the end. It was great.
Which is exactly kind of what you want to have if you're going to go through a big combat like that. What are your thoughts, Laurie? Did you think that was really probably a very engaging combat?
From what I remember, yes.
Okay.
That was actually quite a long time ago. But I do remember the Dinosaur Island and the fact that there were those little battles leading up to something a little bit bigger, which I think that was probably the most, as I'm thinking about it, the most engaging map that maybe we played.
So in terms of a large combat, that was a great success for the table as a whole. Everybody got to play a part in that.
Right, because it was broken down. It wasn't just one big thing, right? It was broken down into little bits that maybe we were able to have more time to think about what we were going to do.
I think that was like the most connected all of us at one time were to that specific game. Like that was the most connected we've ever been, and like worked together. That is the most we've probably worked together. And like he said, we had no hit points left. There was no turning back, and there was just, you were just going to die if anything happened.
It was very much this is the hill you die upon kind of scenario.
I remember getting kind of upset at the end of week 2, being like, oh man, if I have to re-roll another character, fuck that. I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do.
Very much so.
Well, and I think
granted, I've got plenty of fucking extra characters in the fucking hopper, but
I think what was important about that combat was, yes, it was designed to be a number of small encounters leading to a major encounter, with staging going on, designed around engaging multiple players at the same time, giving each person their opportunity. But there was a second part of it, is that this was also a huge part of each one of the characters' backstories too. So I filled in along the island leading to this. So there was, a couple of weeks, maybe 2 months worth of, they got on the island and sort of investigated, and there was little puzzles and there's big puzzles, and there was, these encounters and those encounters, but they all led to this one.
The big overarching one.
It was a planned event, and it was, Dinosaur Island. I mean, it's Dinosaur Island. Everybody wants to go to Dinosaur Island.
No, this actually sounds like I was actually going to ask you all kind of your final thoughts for the subject at hand. I know we kind of got all over the place with engaging and stuff, but this actually sounds like kind of that perfect engaging combat. It sounds like it was very elaborately planned, which was, there's a lot of process that went into it itself. And could you replicate one of those encounters on the island in a normal encounter and try to replicate that engagement in each individual encounter as you kind of go forward? So that is my thought. But it does sound like kind of the perfect encounter where you're merging. Not only did the story play into the encounter, which helps engage your players even further into it, so you can see the threat in front of you, you understand the immense problem that you have to solve at the end of this, and then you pulled everyone down to almost 0 hit points, which is exactly where you wanted to be. I've talked about this multiple times before, that the threat of death is not actually dying in the game is not actually really a bad consequence. It's the fear of dying. And I think that's what I'm hearing, is everybody really kind of felt like they were going to die at the end of this encounter. And so I think that that's almost like the perfect thing that you could do. It's like kind of like the big culmination of your game would be that kind of encounter. You could only hope that it'll land that way. But anyways, that's my 2 thoughts on it. Does anybody else have anything else they want to add to the topic? Any other final thoughts on the topic?
Well, going based off what you just said, like I don't know if Josh can replicate one of the mini fights into fights ongoing, just because of how our backstories have played out. Like, I guess within our game, everybody is so well known. I guess, like our characters per se. Like I guess I'm well known, and everyone asks, "Are you the Guns McFreedom?"
Right.
Because that's just who I am. And it's like, I guess I am, but still, it's like, I don't think you can just go on with that. Like, I don't think you can replicate a fight because of this, because you have that expectation to do well, per se.
Maybe not replicate the fight in, like, what I'm trying to say is can you replicate a moment in that fight where everybody engaged at that point?
Quite possibly. This is where, like, new players, like, duh.
Right. I feel like that's really where the differentiation comes in on a player-to-player basis comes in, is that it resonates with each player in a different way. Your new players, it's going to titillate the initial reaction to, oh, I find this new and intriguing in a way that I can relate to. And your veteran players, you feel like it resonates with so many core characteristics of things that you're already familiar with. And in Josh's execution of Dinosaur Island, it becomes a very much kind of Ian Malcolm life finds a way kind of mentality. It was very well executed. But at the same time, don't give me that look.
Oh, I appreciate it. We're back to praising me. It's good.
Try to end the podcast on praise.
Yeah.
Right. But no, like it was very much like everybody liked it, but nobody liked it for the same reason. And that was it's a very difficult dynamic. Excuse me.
You have to thread that needle.
Stop. Yeah. It's a difficult dynamic to pull off, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. And an encounter like that took a long time to prep and to build and to get everybody in place for.
Right.
And to make sure everybody's engaged. And those encounters are capstones.
Right. Cornerstones that really define new players' future history, for lack of a better term. It's the thing that becomes the reference point that new players right now will be able to look back on in the future and say, this was the point. This was the point where so-and-so really made it memorable for me and resonated with me as a player and a character and made my character's investment mean something.
And I was just going to go back to Dinosaur Island because it was really great.
It was fantastic.
All of the small encounters and battles that we had prior to the big battle at the end, I felt like it almost trained each of us how we were supposed to play that big end battle in a way that we hadn't necessarily thought of or necessarily played our characters previously in other rounds when we were back on the mainland. So I feel like that was really, really helpful as far as keeping us all engaged and keeping us excited for the next battle, because we were like, man, that was a weird encounter. Why did I have to do that today? And then it totally made sense, and it all came full circle like 2.5 months later, and it all made sense. But that's what kept that section of the story, and not that the rest of our story has been uneventful or unexciting, but that was the most memorable for me, at least, because everything made sense. There was a rhyme and reason to everything. We just didn't know it at the time when we were doing it, but it all made sense at the end. So that's what I liked, because then you saw the big picture. It all came together.
What do you think, Laurie? Nothing?
I agree.
Awesome.
I mean, I can't say it any better, or I can't put it into different words. I just agree. That was really well put.
Yep.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap us up for this week's episode. If you have thoughts on how to make combat engaging for new players and veteran players alike, and how you have made different encounters very engaging, you just heard the Dinosaur Island tale there at the end, and I feel that was kind of a very kind of cathartic moment at the end of this podcast.
It was a lot of fun.
Let me know. levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. Also on YouTube, so go ahead and smash that like button. Subscribe to the podcast there if that's how you wish to listen to the medium. You can also review, subscribe to the podcast, or tell a friend. Just all that stuff helps the podcast become more searchable, all that other good stuff. But thank you, Ashley and Paul, for coming onto the podcast. And so for Laurie, Ashley, Ken, Josh, and Paul, I'm Aaron. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bad. Josh, take us out.
Do. Now you've leveled up.